Thank you for joining. Thank you so much for joining. And we're going to start once again with our prayers. And again, this is layering that virtuous field again to start to give some blessing, some support for our day today, to have a better retreat day, better ideas, better intake coming in, things like that. And so it's important. And even though we don't always resonate, as I said yesterday with the prayers, they're really important to do. It's really helpful to do. You just see where I put them. Oh, thank you. Okay. Yep. Yeah, you might have to share. I don't know where they are. File things, but no idea. Okay, great. Thank you. So we're going to start with the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. And again, visualize the Buddha in the space in front. So this isn't something separate from you. It's like a virtuous friend. You could see the Buddha inseparable with any teachers you have like that. And so if you need, we have it on the screen. If for those of you that want to see, feel free to just move over temporarily if you want. The old version in the prayer book may be slightly different, so we'll do the best we can. And again, this is a being that represents the omniscient mind, perfect being, but mainly to inspire us that you actually can make your mind like that. That's where we're headed. And this is a being of infinite compassion, wisdom, power, loving kindness. So you don't necessarily want to feel this thing outside of you. You have Buddha nature, which is a potential to become that, to become a Buddha. So we want to connect in that way. And we're just asking right now, I value you, I respect, I see that quality in myself, and I'm working to develop that. So we'll start these praises. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Shugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Shugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Guru, teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, Shugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of beings to be subdued, teacher of gods and humans, to you, Buddha Bhagavan, glorious conqueror Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When supreme amongst humans you were born on this earth, you paced out 7 strides, then said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise then I prostrate. With pure bodies, form supremely form, pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, savior, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. Dust free like you, the 3 worlds are not, incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the teacher having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to the one gone to thusness I prostrate. The purity that frees one from attachment, the virtue that frees one from the lower realms, the one path of sublime pure reality, to the Dharma that pacifies I prostrate. Those who are liberated will also show the path to liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, to you the sublime community intending virtue I prostrate. Do not commit any unwholesome actions. Engage in perfect wholesome actions. Subdue one's own mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha. So we're going to slowly do this next verse, reflecting on emptiness, a star, a defective view, a butter lamp flame, an illusion, a dewdrop, a water bubble, a dream, lightning, a cloud. See all causative phenomena like this. By these merits may transmigratory beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the enemy of fault, and be freed from the ocean of samsara, disturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. We're going to go to the 7 limbs, a little further down. So past the lineage lama's prayer. I prostrate reverently with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, both actually arranged and mentally emanated. I confess all my negative actions and downfalls collected from beginningless time. I rejoice in the virtues of ordinary beings and Aryas. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for transmigratory beings. I dedicate my own and others' virtues to great enlightenment. And offering a mandala to create the cause so we can receive teachings. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha field and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. So visualizing the most extraordinary universes you can imagine. Multiplying, filling all the space. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niratayami. And then the refuge bodhicitta prayer. So the mandala again was for people would travel long distances in ancient Tibet, India, and bring their most precious jewel. If they had one valuable thing at home, they would bring that to just offer so they could get one line of the Dharma, one teaching. It used to be like that. Now the teachings are everywhere, you know, and nobody thinks of offering. Nobody thinks of supporting the centers or, you know, things have degenerated a bit, but it used to be so precious that only certain people could kind of get it together to do that and say, you know, leave their families and because they heard they wanted to see this one teacher like that. So it's symbolic of that, partly symbolic of that. So taking refuge, generating bodhicitta. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. So we're going to read one more time in English. Think about what you're saying. Think about, by my merits of listening to the Dharma. You need a lot of merit to hear the Dharma. And you need a lot of merit to be able to take it in the right way. Because sometimes you sit in a teaching, this happened many times, and then people leave the teaching, and even with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and they'll say, and, you know, there's a lunch break, and everyone will walk out, and Sylvie's probably been in this thing, and people say, "Oh, that was so powerful." His Holiness, and then we came back to our center with people that couldn't go to the teaching at one point, and I think we were in Southern California, and we went back to the north, and somebody had to stay at the center, and we said it was so powerful, and then they said, "Well, what did he teach on?" and they go,
They like the containers.
I don't know. Like no memory at all, the teaching. You know, you sat for hours a day. You're like, so again, how are we listening? Okay, well, let's read again. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. O Sangye Chodanzo Kicho Namla Janchu Bardu De Kyapsuchi Dagi Cheningi Peso Namgi Drola Penchu Sangye Dru Parsho. And it's interesting, I take refuge until I'm enlightened. So where do you get protection from more suffering? Like, what kind of sources are you going to that are really going to help your mind until you're enlightened? You know, we don't kind of stop and go, well, I'm at the center today, so I feel the refuge, I'll take refuge. But then you go home and then you're taking refuge in other things, right?
Yeah.
All the time. So it's something to think about, something to think about. Other things that you think are going to bring you happiness, and they bring you some temporary happiness, but not long-term happiness, not ultimate happiness. Something to think about. Yeah. Thank you.
No,
No, we're going to pass on that right now. Thank you. Here. Okay. We did some homework. And I was just preliminarily asking, and we are going to get to your question on purification, and there's probably some other questions, but I just want to ask everyone together how last night and this morning went based on, you know, everything comes from the mind. Labeling process. And let me just add a little bit of Rinpoche again, that we've been going over and over, almost the same thing. But Rinpoche also talks a little bit like this, where so an appearance arises to one of your sense faculties, sometimes a couple at the same time, meaning you've got visual sense faculties taking in forms and shapes and colors, and the ear is working. So that's connecting to the, you know, auditory consciousness that's in the mind that connects with the physical ear organ that's part of the body. It's not the mind. Connects up that hears sounds, right? Then you've got taste in your mouth, you've got smells, you've got tactile. So all these are coming in like that. And then Rinpoche says, and then, so let's say we see something, we see the painting, see the image, okay? So an appearance arises, okay? Immediately, instantly, the mind labels on what that is. Everything's defined. We talked about yesterday, everything's defined already. Immediately, you're labeling on that. You have a name for that, designation for it. It's almost instantaneously, okay? You label. And then as ordinary beings, we're labeling with a limited consciousness. Limited consciousness. And then, but what appears back, so there's a labeling process that we miss due to our limited consciousness, due to our ignorance. Okay, why is the ignorance in our mind? We're not stupid, it's not that kind of ignorance. It's a misknowing of reality. Why is it in our mind? From a previous moment of that in our mind. From another moment before that in our mind of ignorance, another moment. And so it's about what habits we're making in our mind to dismantle this ignorance. We need a lot of virtue to dismantle the ignorance. We need a lot of virtue to read books on emptiness, study emptiness, meditate on emptiness, and have a direct perception of emptiness like that. And it's related to karma. And I just thought that's another course we should do because that comes later in this module, but we won't have the time to finish all of that. And it's really juicy, the karma and emptiness part like that. So that could be an interesting topic. So again, the mind labels. We miss the labeling process covered over by our ignorance. We miss that the mind is merely imputing something on a form that I'm going to call, in this case with the tanka. You see them in the room. Yes, you can see them. Some of you, yeah, you can see the room. So you see these, what I'm going to call rectangular cloth or brocade that has an image in the middle generally, okay, with colors like that. But you've got this rectangular hanging cloth with an image in the middle. My mind labels on that tanka for human beings in this part of the world with this language. And again, thank you for letting me speak English. Tanka. And then, but what happens is, and then the tanka painting we say arises, comes into existence, tanka. Before that, there was a base to be designated, rectangular piece of cloth hanging on the wall with an image in the middle, like that. My mind labels tanka, you know, and then immediate, but what what appears back to my consciousness instantly, what appears back to my consciousness almost immediately is not a merely imputed tanka, merely imputed word on this rectangular cloth, but what appears back to my limited consciousness, my ignorant consciousness, is a truly existent tanka there for all time. True existence is what mirrors back. Okay, so that's one problem, is the true existence mirrors back, comes right back to me. Yeah. The second problem is I believe it. Okay, and Rinpoche says, you trust that. Then you trust that. And then he says again and again, which is a complete hallucination. Doesn't exist that way at all. Doesn't exist inherently, concretely, truly existent at all. But we believe in that. Every single moment we have an ignorant consciousness. Okay, and the worst part is about ourselves. So I'm holding myself concretely. I'm holding myself truly existent. I'm holding myself as the center of the universe, the most important thing. Anything that interferes with that is going to cause me to suffer. That's our suffering. So one of the homework, so everybody okay? Everybody following me? Including your cat? I asked you, there were several different things. So I know a lot of people forget, no problem. Where does your suffering come from? From the mind. And what about the mind?
Ignorance.
From the ignorance. Okay. So, and do you notice that process when you're suffering? Right? But that's the thing, it's great to say it intellectually. Yeah, well, it comes from my ignorance in my mind. But when I'm actually suffering, how does it work for you? Do you go there and go, this is what we're trying to do. Everything comes from the mind. Everything comes from the mind. I asked you to play with that last night, play with it this morning. Everything comes from the mind. So when you suffer, what happened? I'm just curious, be honest. What do you do? What are your experiences? We have minimal suffering, mundane suffering, light things. Then we have some pretty heavy suffering also that goes on. Now, I'm not even talking about the world around us. There's a lot of suffering there, but I'm just talking about your own individual, because this is us working practically with our minds. You know, we have to figure it out, you know, and what are the ways you suffer? Look at last week. Okay, I want you to go, let's close our eyes for a moment. Let's just sit for a moment. This is a really helpful exercise. Just find a comfortable position for the body. If you're in a chair, no problem. Just don't have your legs crossed, have your feet flat on the floor. And try to find that extension for your spine. Just take a moment to settle on a normal, natural breath, moving in and out of your nostrils, just slowly. I'd like you to review, just reflect a bit on last week. Whatever you can remember of, was there a little pop of something that you didn't like last week that happened to you? Was your mind a little tilted during one day or one morning? Something going on? See if you can bring yourself back to that space of mind. Doesn't have to be a giant suffering, but something wasn't working for you. A cloud coming across the sun for you, not happy. Explore what was going on for you. And you can have a look at Who or what was around you? Were you stationary? Were you moving? Were you in your home, out of your home, at work, traveling? And I want you to notice the beginning as the suffering moment evolved, the very beginning of it. What changed from the moment before when everything was okay? And now move into this little piece of unhappiness or suffering. Can you go back into your mind? What were you thinking about as it was unfolding? What were your thoughts focused on? And did those thoughts shift the suffering, the discomfort? Can you get a sense, a feeling as these thoughts go on? They're leaving little imprints in your consciousness of similar thoughts and experiences. So, for instance, when you have this discomfort, you most probably have had it before, it's very common. You have a certain habit, a way of dealing with it. Is it like that for you? Certain automatic thoughts kick in of where your thinking goes. And that thinking creates activity for you, more activity in your body, speech, and mind. May cause you to say something, may cause you to shift your body in a certain way. Would you say you're layering virtuous seeds from those activities and thoughts? How much of your thoughts contain that everything comes from your mind? That this is a projection from your mind? There's no inherently existent discomfort there at all. So look at your problem now with that idea, that attitude. There's no inherently existent discomfort, suffering or problem there at all. It comes from your mind. Comes from a previous negative experience and imprint in your mind. You have lots of negative imprints. It's very common for a limited consciousness. That's all. You're not a bad person. It's just a limited consciousness has limited thinking. So let's redo that suffering, that problem again. You enter that experience. That first moment of the experience as it's unfolding, shifting from the previous moment, noting what changed for you. Can you first direct your awareness to thinking about others around you or how this may affect other beings, rather than just focusing on yourself? You're not the only one experiencing this discomfort. Think of all the others in the world that have it much worse. Only live in samsara, cyclic existence, that by its very nature is suffering. And that means that suffering is going to come up from time to time in big and small ways in our lives. That's normal. Look at your problem in that way. This is the standard nature of samsara. What did I think samsara was? Did I think I could fix samsara? And if this suffering is unfolding now, can you see it as a type of purification? You're cleaning something out with the discomfort. And especially if you respond to it in a more virtuous way. So I created something in the past in my mind, something negative that's causing this to arise for me right now. That's all that's happening. So how can you more virtuously, more positively respond right now to ease this suffering? To shift this dynamic of the problem, of the discomfort. Once again, notice whatever your situation is, whatever the discomfort, does it appear to be coming from the outside? Someone else is causing it? Something else is causing it? Or could it be coming from your mind? Please relax. And slowly, when you're ready, please open your eyes. You don't have things to drink. I was gonna say, if you have something to drink, you can pick it up for a moment. Um, this is an effective, yeah, pick it up for a moment. Sorry, if you don't have something to drink. We don't normally drink in the gulp, I know that, so thank you for. But what you want to do is, as you bring the first sip in, it's another nice exercise. You want to taste that sip. Those of you at home, if you have do we ever really taste for a moment? You know, this is just mindful drinking. But again, notice the sensations. Like sometimes plain water is not a whole lot happening, but still there's moisture in the mouth. Sometimes you might have like, I like that. This is, you know, the taste of this, or it could be too hot, too cold, okay. But again, very slowly, some mindful drinking. Taste comes in, all those sensations with the tongue. Again, coming in through sense faculties is taste. Using taste this time. Comes in. It's coming from your mind though, whatever experience you're having. Again, that moment, it's coming from my mind. This entire experience is coming from my mind. So there's many ways to play with it, many ways to keep reminding yourself. Because all we've been doing is in our limited consciousness lives is creating imprints that everything is inherently existent, nothing comes from my mind. Like we're thoroughly soaked in that. We've got that one down, but that's not correct. So that's why we really have to work against it to constantly be, and this is the vigilance in the Tuesday night class on Lojong, the 8 verses. One of the verses about, you know, being vigilant. The moment a delusion arises in my mind, you're there with it. And that's hard work. That's hard work for us. You know, the mind gets, you go, you know, so some of you speak several languages. And I remember living in France as a student one year and, you know, trying to learn the conjugations and you know, and over trying to think in French and trying to, you know, and I think I was there for about 9 months or something. And sometimes I just go home and I was like, done, you know, I just needed to speak English. I was so done with French, you know, the mind is exhausted with it. So it's hard work to do this, to constantly be reminding. And then what happens with samsara? So again, samsara's nature will have suffering arise. We'll have these experiences. That's its nature, by the way. Okay, we're not convinced of that. We forget that all the time because we have it relatively good. We have it relatively good. So that's another mistake. So again, I've mentioned this before. If you're in a swimming pool filled with water, right, and you jump in, you're not surprised that you're wet because the nature of water is it's moist. So this is the kind of thing with samsara. We're constantly like, why did this happen? Because it's samsara. You know, my car didn't start. I got the flu. My kid didn't get into that program that I wanted them to do. This isn't, you know, this is its nature. But we're constantly trying to fix samsara. If I can just, you know, once I get the desk and that room renovated, everything's going to be okay. Right? And then there's just another thing. Another thing. I sometimes think about our spiritual structure, and they talk about having a good foundation for, the basis of the philosophy, first of all, that first pass, before you put the roof of Tantra on. You want to have a good structure. But we're constructing this incredible palace, this palace of incredible Dharma realizations and things like that. But it is a little bit, reminds me of house renovations that my neighbors have done, back in Philadelphia, where I've watched their houses change over the years and different things they wanted to do. But, you start with one room. Some of you have houses. You start with one room, right? And once you do that room, well, the room next to it doesn't look that good. So you go, well, now I really need to do the next room. And now that that's done, this doesn't really fit. So now we need to take care of that. And it's it's always like that. So why don't we make it a Dharma practice where we're like, well, now that I kind of got this course going, now I realize I need to study this. And that's really going to help. And now I need to do a retreat on this. And in between, so the break times are incredibly essential. Meaning in between the courses, in between the things. When you're in an actual formal retreat, they say the break times are more important than the actual sessions, right? I noted that, every time I'm in retreat, I noticed. Well, last summer, I got to do a little bit more retreat and just trying to be more and more vigilant of those break times, because the mind, if it slips right back into ordinary thinking, you kind of lost all the luster of, but it's very hard, isn't it? So when your problem, I'm just asking people online, people here, any shift in the thinking. And here's a question I did want to ask is, that moment that you might say the problem started, a little discomfort started, this little whatever was happening. What changed from the moment before? Any comments?
Yeah. For me, it was, I could see immediately that it was self-cherishing. Immediately. In the moment before, it was my importance. And right after that, there was a disappointment. So I really held on to me being indignant. And it just took off.
Right.
In the negative race.
Yeah. And it's very powerful to look at that moment and to see that, because it's usually self-cherishing that is the issue that's going on. And a little bit more that grasp, it really gets, yeah. Yeah, no, very powerful. Thank you. No, and other people have a similar thing when you look at it?
Yeah, I thought about well, actually on Friday I usually go to work with my bike, and I have a place where to put my bike because not so many people come with the bike. So they told me not to put it there, not to put it there, not to put it there. Then one of my colleagues said, Sabrina, why don't you put it over there? And I said, wow, thank you so much. And I found this place, and even in winter, I go with my bike and I put it there. Then now in Italy, because I'm from Italy, it's sunny now. So people start coming with a bike. And on Friday morning, I was so happy with my bike. I went and I knew that was my place, obviously, for my bike. So I went there, for me, it was my place. I knew I was going to park my bike there. And I saw another bike. I said, what? Why did he do that to me? And I thought about this person that did it on purpose. He did it on purpose, I know, because he saw me every time coming with the bike. Why did you put it there? And I watched myself and I was thinking, oh my gosh, but I couldn't stop it. I was so upset. And I even went to one of my colleagues because I knew he or she was going to her class. I said, who is it? Because I think it's a little bit arrogant, because he saw that is my place. But then while I was doing that, I was watching my mind. I was thinking maybe there's something wrong here, because I'm so attached to that place, and that is mine. What's wrong with it, And one of the things that you said, and it's something that I studied, but it's so difficult to leave, this thing is that I thought, well, I must have done it. to somebody else in the past, you know. But it's so difficult to think about that, you know, in that.
So this is why, thank you so much. This is a great example. Great example. Thank you. Is look at how you know, we've so reinforced over and over, reinforced over and over. So and again, it's very, very hard work to think of it in the moment. So we have to get on our cushion to do the work. So when I said to you, go back the beginning of the problem and now use these things, I was saying that everything comes from the mind, that, you know, other people are around me, what other people are experiencing this. There's all these antidotes you apply on the cushion, like a role play. So you start role playing the virtuous mind state, how you would like it to be, and see if it undoes the problem. If it starts minimizing the problem, it always does. It always does. Wait, hang on, Mike, we'll be with you in a second. So you have to do this work on the cushion, and you have to do it, I'm sorry, over and over and over and over, because our mind's already thoroughly habituated in the other way through every moment that we're living and lifetimes before this. And so over and over practicing a new method, a new model for your mind, a virtuous model for your mind. And you want to hit it from every direction. You want to come from every angle, like, oh, I read that in a book, this antidote worked. Okay, and I heard that in the class. And I want to remember that. I want to remember that it's empty and my bike is empty of any inherent nature, and that other people are, so this is a mundane issue and it's only coming from my mind. And I've done this to other people. And if I respond negatively, and then here's another little tip, okay, that is, I've tried a little bit, it's not easy, but to try to get the possession out of a lot of my belongings. So for instance, there's the car I drive, you know, sometimes rather than my car. My car's got a little bit, now we say my house, my flat, but you know, the place I live, I might say, oh, the place I live. Because there's always a lot of attachment to certain things, always a lot of attachment. And then we see how much it makes us suffer. I mean, a bike is a mundane thing, and the parking space and all these things. And then we also get this arrogance of they're doing it to me. They saw me, this person specifically was targeting, like what Sabrina was saying. And so here's another thing that, and this is even on a humorous note, I've mentioned this, I think, in previous classes. I have a friend in the States that once a year sends out these newsletters of how their family is, like a holiday newsletter. It's very American kind of thing. And then what he does is he and his wife read a lot, and they recommend at the bottom books that they've read over the past year. And, you know, and some of it's helpful because I read, you know, and I like sound read, but he also had this thing of I think I told this before, the 365 like tools for daily living. One of these books. I don't really like those books very much. So he listed the first two in the newsletter, the first two things. So number one was, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay. Now, I found this really helpful. It doesn't matter. Now, we know some things matter, and you have to take care of that. Okay. But, you know, this is a perfect example where you park your bike and the fact that it's like, that kind of thing. For me to get all torn up over stuff like that, you know, I'm in the supermarket and they took the last thing of the rice that I wanted, that it doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter, you know, am I going to get so upset? So you have to gauge, like, some things matter, take care of it, do it, and the rest of it, let it go. But number two is even more important, I thought. Are you ready?
Yes.
Some of you've heard this before. Okay. Number two is, no one's talking about you. Okay. We're so full of ourselves. So again, this guy was targeting you, you know, about, I saw her put the bike there, I'm going to put my bike there to irritate her. Like, people are not that sophisticated to be doing that most of the time. Most people do not have the time and space because they're mostly thinking about themselves. So they probably put their bike there. It was convenient for them. They never gave it another thought. They may have seen a bike there before and went, okay, great, you can park a bike here. End of that story. But now suddenly my ego says, they're doing it to me. They're doing it to me. And it must be a guy. Must be a guy. Did you know it was a guy?
Oh, that's I noticed that as well, but because I think most of the people
Was it
that
a woman?
it was a guy, it was a
It
guy.
was a guy.
Yeah, yeah. Because and when actually another thing, because most of the people that do cycling are a man. That's why I thought about a guy. But it might have been something in my mind as well that I thought immediately a guy. And the other interesting thing is that my colleague that teaches cycling, she said, "Oh, I know who he is. He's such a wonderful man." And I thought, "What? You're not a
Right.
wonderful man." And
Yeah, so we've not only labeled him evil for all time,
Yeah.
but isn't it amazing? How
Yeah.
you're completely false, completely mistaken.
Yeah.
But I know that person and I know what they're like. And no, nobody's thinking about you. Nobody's talking to me. He just put the bike there. He didn't. And then it ruined my entire day. But it's all, like it's just amazing. So can we let go that it just doesn't exist? So keep poking it. It doesn't exist. Nothing exists the way it's appearing to you. And if you have a contaminated consciousness, doesn't. So I found that liberating because people, and I've talked about this before, people get stories going about other people. You just got a story going about this guy, right? But all the time we have stories. As soon as somebody walks in the room, the eye consciousness takes in, and a little bit of a story starts. You don't even know them, but a little bit of a story going on about just based on what people look like. Then you hear them say something, then you got the sound happening, you hear their voice, then a little bit more and you interact. And we get stories going. So unless you have a direct perception of emptiness, your story is always wrong. Okay. Now it has a certain valid perception. If somebody walks in the room with a purple coat on, my unconsciousness and everybody identifies that's purple. Well, that's valid. That's purple, but I don't know the whole story about the purple. I'm really not seeing, I'm seeing an inherently existent purple arise. It's not how it exists at all. So you have to keep, and watch when you get, like Sabrina was saying, she's got a big story that started to disturb her day. So when you notice that, like take a moment, even go back to your work cubicle, wherever you're working. If you don't have anything like that, go into the bathroom. I've done a lot of Dharma work in bathrooms because you can shut the door and you're alone for a moment and you can compose yourself in the middle of a meltdown, as we'd say, but you can compose yourself. Number one, bring up your motivation. So if you're a Dharma practitioner, most of us start in the morning with some sort of nice motivation for the day. Can I try to direct the energy of my body, speech, and mind as much as I can through the day to move me along a path to full awakening, become a Buddha? Why? So I can benefit all living beings. That's the basis of a very basic motivation. And you can elaborate on that, but the very basis, your waking thoughts, getting up, setting up water bowls, whatever you're doing, having tea, is that. Let's say as a Mahayana practitioner, we want to get that going, okay? So if you have that going and now it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm raging at this person at work, go in the bathroom, And as we'd say, there's an Americanism, but I'm not going to say the nasty word, but get your caca together and you do it in the bathroom, right? It's a good place to do it, right? But you do it where you come back, and I've done this. I remember different jobs years ago, something disturbing, into the bathroom. It was the only place I could be alone. And then I was like, okay, wait. What's my motivation? You don't even need to be going to the bathroom, but you close the door. What's my motivation? I want to be a Buddha to benefit all living beings. All living beings, again, the emphasis on all living beings, except this jerk at work. I have left them out of the formula now. I hate them. I don't want to see them again. I mean, this is what the mind starts. So then I have to go, and not only and them, but especially them, right? And so we're going to go on today talking about that person is your most valuable player, most valuable person in your life, right? Because they're really showing you your mind. They're really, so you start to value the difficult people because you're doing more work with them. You like everybody, it's easy. The mind gets a little bit lazy. But as soon as somebody pokes me, as soon as somebody puts their bike, and again, and here's this territorial thing. She said, in my spot, You know, you have ownership of that spot. You pay rent for that spot. No, of course not. You didn't build the spot or anything.
Completely. And I watched myself so much that when I was talking to my colleague and she was saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry," I said, then I looked at her and I said, "No, wait a minute. It's not my spot." I told her, because then afterwards I was watching my mind. I was thinking, this is the opposite of what the teacher said to me to do. And I was thinking, what am I doing? And this is me, mine. What
Yeah.
are you doing to me? So I said, "No worries." And then afterwards, I went to talk to the manager and I just said, "Where can I park my bike? Because you told me not to park here, not to park there. I have to come to work." And that's it. It was done. He told me, "Yes, you can park there, no problem." And I said, "Yeah, I did everything by myself. But I
But
still
that's
kept it with me when I came home on Saturday. I wanted to call my colleague and said to her, "Look, what I said to you was nothing, just leave it. It was my mind." But there was a part of my mind that was saying, "No, you were right. That man did it on purpose. Leave it. Don't tell her." And I still have to tell her. I want to tell her now. I say, "Look, don't say anything to that man, okay? Just let it park there."
that's right. That's right. But this is really common because the I, me, mine, sometimes say me, myself, and I. It's so dominant due to our limited contaminated aggregates. It's so dominant. I mean, that's the nature of it, is it's all about me, and it's not. And that's the source of the suffering. So it's so nice when the more you work on it, and then you come in and all of a sudden you see a story unfolding, negative, and I can more quickly catch it and go, whoa, wow, sweeping saga. I'm not going to get on that surfboard. I'm going to stay right here where the ocean is calm, spacious. And it's hard. It's very hard work sometimes to keep yourself balanced in that and go, wow, look at those thoughts. And I enjoy sometimes, I can't say I enjoy my negative thoughts, but I enjoy more the process of watching them go, like where I'm not getting involved in it. Just because I'm a nun, it doesn't mean I don't have some wild horse in the mind sometimes rearing itself in the face of something. So, we were just talking. So Sylvie picked me up at the airport about a little more than a week ago, and my luggage didn't come. My bag, one checked bag, didn't come. And, there was a whole thing of the process where you have to wait for all the bags to unload. Anyway, so you're waiting and waiting. Pretty sure the bag was not going to come because it was too short of a change. And just that whole process. And I would watch my mind kind of like, and then calm down again. And then a little, and then sorting like what are the options, what should we do and things like that. And Sylvie having, some good ideas. But you can just see how, so it's very nice and freeing when you don't have to get involved and tossed by the waves, and you can stay on a calmer kind of surfboard doing the ride with spaciousness and really that good heart that what about taking care of all the people around me? What about being calm for all of them? And what about trying, and I had that funny thing with that woman that was with me that, I was just it was another woman also that was late for the flight. So then I was trying to help her and I kept saying, why don't we go to the desk that it says there, this desk? And then she had some other ideas of things she wanted to do. And so it's interesting, but again, bigger space of heart. I'm going to try to take care of other people around me. That I don't, and then you take that focus off of yourself, and then joy opens up. Joy has the potential to open up. So maybe we should bring them into this teaching. And okay, so Mike, please. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to share a little observation. I had this situation at work with a meeting with my boss and my other colleagues. When I heard some words from my boss that I wasn't particularly happy with, and obviously the moment the moment I heard it, like my ego got struck, and the perception of this person obviously shifted right away. So before that, he was my boss that I actually do respect quite a lot. But after I hear the words that I'm not a big fan of, is like, oh, this person, this boss, is not really that nice. I think he's getting rude. And obviously that changed my perception of him. But it automatically also put me in defensive position against all my other colleagues. And all of a sudden this cascade started. of negative thoughts as not against my colleagues, against my boss, against my colleagues, and then I was just noticing how easily it is to get back into those patterns that we have already established in our minds, because obviously those are the thought patterns from the past, the behavioral patterns from the past. And what actually I was thinking is like, maybe that's what we can interpret as our negative karma bringing back the repeating itself. It is increasing itself by causing us to get to do the same behavior again and again and again. So just wanted
That's
to share that with all the
exactly,
group.
and you've really hit it. That's exactly what happens. And that's what, in this particular module, Rinpoche talks about as one of the worst things that happens is the negative imprints just continue around and keep us chained into that prison. Basically, it just works like that. And that's why to let it build a little bit in our heart and mind of a motivation to get out of samsara, to keep working on it. So to make the effort, because we're quite lazy often. I don't want to do that course. I don't want to read that particular text and things like that. But that's the source, that's the direction of the happiness. But again, degenerate times, we're so admired in all the distractions that are so delectable. They seem to be so delectable. So I would say that's why the benefit of Dharma centers, and you have Dharma communities from the centers that, we help each other. We help each other do it. And you just have to make the effort. So you hit it right on, as that it just creates additional that negative imprint just deepens and deepens and deepens like that. So we have to make some effort. And another thing I think about too is when we mention the bike space and and also when you're dealing with your colleagues, as Mike, you were just saying, the more it starts cascading, as you said, it's a good word to use, where the negative thoughts start increasing, and is the quicker I can catch, this is coming from my mind. Wait a minute, it's just coming from my mind. And because it's coming from my mind, and I'm uncomfortable right now with what's coming from my mind, put those antidotes in your toolbox of what can I do right now that starts to dismantle this particular pattern. And one of them, the 4 immeasurables, we're going to do after lunch, the 4 immeasurable prayers, 4 lines. Now there's a longer version of those, but you've got 4 lines. You can memorize or learn or have a little cheat sheet, put it at your office, or, where I'm starting to go downhill with my mind. And then, if this particular colleague or this boss, I've done it at meetings as well, just quietly to myself, but may you have happiness and all the causes of happiness. Now, initially, you may not feel that. You may may you have happiness and all the causes, but you're at least coming with that rather than you're a jerk, you're stupid, I hate you, that kind of stuff we don't need. But may you, and eventually, again, fake it till you become that. Again, you're contriving, you're forcing, but may you have happiness and all the causes of happiness, maybe have happiness. And I was in a meeting just when I met the Dharma. I was working at this magazine, and we would have these meetings around a conference table, and they were really boring and laborious, and people were fighting over budgets and and there were a couple really, really, what I labeled as really, really big egos in the room, even though mine was also really big like everyone else. And so I remember as a new Buddhist learning a few things, and I would be irritated at someone, and just quietly to myself, I'd think, practicing a little bit of equanimity and think, just as I want to be happy and don't want to suffer, that's what this guy wants across the table from me. Wants to be happy, doesn't want to suffer. And I would just think this in my mind. I wouldn't say anything. I would just be like thinking this, and then I'd be like, just as I want to be happy and don't want to suffer, that's what she wants. She wants to be happy. And it just would help me kind of see these people. We're all on the same pool here. And we're all, they're all trying, and they're all really good people. And there was something I was reading. I can't remember what, something I was just reading the other day about, but where somebody was saying, finding fundamental goodness in people and why there was goodness. And I'm a firm believer in that, because everyone has Buddha nature. Okay, every single being with a mind that goes down to a single cell organism, an amoeba, according to Buddhism. Okay, not trees and rocks and flowers and things, even though they're beautiful and they have a lit life force in them, they are said by the Buddha not to have mind. But every being with a mind, with a consciousness, has Buddha nature. Buddha nature, as we know, is not that you're a Buddha, not that you're a Buddha yet, but you have a seed and a potential that can awaken into a fully realized being. And everyone has that. Because of that, we're fundamentally good. That's my view, because everybody has that. So I don't care who it is on the planet, I believe in their fundamental goodness. So it cuts through a lot of this stuff where I'm really seeing the person as evil and nasty and harmful, and where I know the fundamental, the fundamental goodness is there. However, it's just thoroughly obscured. You know, my Buddha nature is also obscured. Okay. So I'm not saying I'm so different from them. You may have a world leader that's leading some totalitarian regime and really have heavy negative thoughts about them. They're fundamentally good, but maybe heavily obscured from their Buddha nature based on delusions, and delusions that I suffer from as well. Delusions that I also suffer from, coming from the three poisons: ignorance, attachment, harm, or hatred, anger. Okay. So we all have those. If you're an ordinary being, you suffer from those. Then there's 6 root delusions. You can go on and on like that. So just the more we kind of keep using, these are different antidotes I use. So I think helpful, Mike, if you kind of layer some 4 immeasurables on these people and then catch yourself, this is coming from my mind, as you said you were doing, realizing the imprints. And it just releases us more and more to let go. And then you're spacious, you're happier. You know, but you have to keep trying that over and over. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting at times. You know, last summer on retreat and in my break times, trying to be very vigilant. And sometimes I was just tired. I was just like wanting to just sit with the Amy game. You know, like here I am, my ordinary self, like whatever that self does in break times on retreat. But, you know, it just felt like all the concretization comes back, you know, and I'm like, and you can almost feel yourself with gravity coming, you know, just landing again, you know, that heavy, a little bit heaviness. And I just read this book. I sometimes read, you know, novels and things like that's my little escape. I read this quite beautiful book. You know, it's not a Dharma book, but it's very spacious, called Orbital. I don't know if anyone's heard of this book, Orbital. It's not a very long book, and it's about space travel. And but as a result of that view and the lightness of floating around, and what they're able to see, and I found it very interesting for the mind, is once my gravity and my concreteness comes back, I'm more leaden and I'm unable to see more of the spaciousness of everyone, you know. And then once I'm trying to really poke at it, of, you know, realizing, no, that tanka doesn't inherently exist, of what is appearing back to me as truly exists. And I know that's not true. My mind is merely labeled on that, and that I'm empty myself. And, you know, when you really start working on the cushion, off the cushion with it in meditation, and then when you come out of meditation, you kind of more buoyancy, more space, you know, and working with bodhicitta as well. Like, what about other people? You know, suddenly your little pocket, and, you know, comes of like in the grocery store, they took my last bag, or, you know, like suddenly I'm in a little gnome-like person. But then when I think, well, I'm so glad they got the bag of the rice, that whatever, then all of a sudden this opens up. So one thing I wanted to say about the space with the bike, we have this concept of ultimately everything comes down to kind of my space, like whether it's where I park my bike or my house or my car or those kind of things. And I have a very dear friend in San Francisco who is a Zen master, and he's now quite old, and he just every once in a while I get an email from him out of the blue, and we haven't met in years, and he's I think he's very special. And so he's now losing his memory, and he's starting to experience some signs of dementia. So fortunately, he has a good support group, and they found him a very, as he told me, a luxurious place near San Francisco where he's going to live, and he has more care. And I'm really happy that he's got this group to help him. And so he said to me years ago, we were talking once, and I was often moving around and didn't have a proper place to live or something. And I said, yeah, if you just, I just want to have this thing in my space. And then he looked at me and he said, as if there is anything that exists that is my space. Like even that doesn't exist. So the more I let go of that, the freer you can fly, basically. Because we're always trying to hang on to something like that. So, question.
Yeah, question. I struggle a little bit. Let's say someone is hurting. Okay, the fact is someone is throwing a knife at me. Okay, more time. And then, okay, it's in my mind. I have compassion for this person. But for me, this has to stop. And usually what helps me in life, I know it's wrong, is get super angry and stop this. I don't know how to translate it, like I get it. I have to have compassion. This person probably is sad inside, that's why he's throwing the knife. But how do I stop it? Like, because it's in my mind, there is not my space, but this is something. So I struggle.
Yeah, so the first thing I was mentioning is an attack like that is quite alarming. Like that's a serious problem you're going to have. Somebody's trying to kill you, okay? And sometimes this happens on the planet. So the first thing I mentioned yesterday is get yourself away from that person and that weapon as quickly as you can, as safely as you can, if it's possible. Sometimes it's not possible. But the first thing you want to do is extricate yourself from that situation as quickly, harmlessly as you can. And because it also, and here's a bigger space of mind you could have, it's really detrimental for that person to be harming you. But in that moment, we're so alarmed, you can't think clearly. It's so shocking. You can't think clearly. I haven't been attacked like that, but I've been like minorly assaulted as women are on the planet. Like it happens to us all the time. You're on an Indian bus, the guy's trying to grab your breast. I've in France, many things like that. Boston Public Library. I'm walking down one of the aisles and a guy comes up and just grabs my crotch in the middle of the aisle. I'm not even wearing it. I mean, this happens to women all the time. A friend of mine getting out of the elevator, the guy grabs her butt, right? What she chose to do, because she said this had happened to her before, was in the States. It was a rainy day. She had an umbrella. She's a very meek, quiet person, very sweet, gentle. She somehow finally had it and she stopped just before she got out of the elevator. The doors hadn't shut. She turned around and she started beating him with her umbrella. And the guy probably will never do that again. Again, could you do it with great compassion? I don't know, but this happens to women all over. We're just constantly assaulted in some way around the planet. And men don't really realize that, of how we're grabbed and just people feel like it's their property. It's amazing. It's amazing. And if it's happening to me, it's coming from my mind. Past negative karma, I get all that. So I would say and those are minor things that were so alarming at the time. Somebody trying to stab you, can you get out of there quickly, safely? Okay. Then when you're separate from it, then you can start to do some of the work to minimize the fear, to minimize your anger at the person. And, they're just tremendously disturbed. That's where it comes from. There's nothing necessarily wrong with them. And they still have Buddha nature. They're still fundamentally good, but some incredible disturbance that they think that's something you can do. So you can slowly work with that on your cushion. But the main thing is to get yourself to safety as quickly as you can, as harmlessly, if it's possible, as you can. There was a story, I don't know how true this was. I read it in some newspaper where somebody was about to get shot. In the States, we have issues with guns, so it's much more immediate. Many people die from gun violence. I think about 50,000 a year in the States. And we just don't really get the message in the country that maybe we should eliminate handguns or something. Something's really tilted there. So something I read where the guy was going to shoot him and he was pretty sure he probably would have shot him, somebody being held up. And the guy was a Zen practitioner and said, I'm going to love you anyway. And the guy just ran off, didn't shoot him, but it seemed like he was about to shoot him, from what was going on. And so can we, do we have any presence of mind, to think, and then later to think, there's no point in your hating. And again, think about them, feel the mind that wants to hate the person, because that's where their attack comes from, fear and pain, which is underneath the hate. So the more you can dismantle that in yourself, and again, understanding with karma, we're going to go into that in a moment, where the killing karma comes from. I had that previous moment in my mind. I had that imprint in my mind to be attacked with a knife. It's there. So I just cleaned something out that I'm not going to die with. That's finished now. I had tremendous fear. Of course, you watch all that arises and go, wow, that was wild. And amazingly, I got out of there without any harm. They didn't cause any harm, but I created that in my mind. And then slowly working on deflecting the anger and hatred of this person who's very, very lost, and creating a moment of that for them in the future. Does that make sense?
Yes, you made me think about hostage negotiators.
Yeah.
When there is a person that wants to kill everyone, and then this person comes as a hostage negotiator and starts having a lot of compassion for the killer.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it's true. Actually, it's through compassion. I mean,
that's what tends to. So one of the things we're doing in some of the cities in the States, not enough, but a few cities are working with the police departments and their communities. It's called community policing, but part of it is working with de-escalation techniques, they call it. De-escalation techniques, because if you're holding a gun, as the police have in the States, as well as a lot of other beings in the States have guns, it's a very quick thing to pull that trigger and then somebody's dead. Like, it just happens too quickly. So they're working with police before they shoot, and they come into a situation that's very harmful, and it's all happening, unfolding very, very quickly. How they can start with effective communication techniques to calmly bring that whole heightened level down, number one, so then people can start really talking about, okay, what's the problem here? And can we, and that's been working to prevent people from dying from gun violence, when they can talk somebody down, as they say, but those de-escalation things really work. And so this is what we're trying to do in Dharma. We ourselves need to de-escalate the delusions from taking over. That's our practice, is working to, again, bring those inner voices down from a limited consciousness. So the inner voices are telling me things where it's almost like we're schizophrenics, right? You get inner dialogue saying he's a jerk and I hate them and they always do this to me and he took my bike spot and he must have done it on purpose. That doesn't exist. That's false talking. That's coming from delusion. It's coming from previous imprints of negativity in your mind. The more we recognize it, I can quiet that mind, right? And then really start to engage in more positive thinking. And one of the things you can do is talk to your delusion. So you want to first identify, most of us know already, what's your big, heavy top two, right? And then, when they're going to rise up more than the other ones. They're going to come up and over an attachment, my bike, and kind of go, okay, thank you for holding me hostage to my bike. I'm chained, not only is my bike chained up to the thing, I am chained to my bike in my thinking. And make it humorous. Like, thanks very much. I know you're trying to protect my bike, and my bike costs a lot of money. And so I'm going to take care of my bike, as I do, because I know I'm a responsible person. And thanks very much. I got it in an okay spot, period. We're done with that conversation. So it doesn't have to keep cycling again about, well, he put his in his spot, that was my spot. My spot doesn't exist. So why am I even bringing that to mind? Nothing like that exists. And these are things you can internally talk at times. Just watch that negative inner speak. Does that make sense? Okay, we try our best. We try our best. Question about purification. My dear, in front of me.
Loose.
Luz, you had a question about purification.
Oh, yes.
No, it's good. She's busy taking notes. That's good. As Rinpoche would say, he would say this during the courses. You,
Dharma.
Oh, wait. Rinpoche would say during the courses, and you write this down in your diarrhea. He would get the thing instead of diary. He would get the thing and he'd go, you write it in your diarrhea. Like, so cute. He'd say, sorry, please.
Okay. Practicing Dharma is purifying. Being busy with it is purifying. Yeah. And suffering in a certain way too. But that is as far as I got it. But purifying, I should like to do something extra, short, daily, if it's possible. Sometimes I join the medicine Buddha.
Great.
Puja,
Great.
but it's 1.5 hours, so that's not for daily practice. And do you have an advice for that? So,
Okay, yes.
So we are busy already.
Yes.
Constantly with the purification.
Yes. And do you work full time?
Yes.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
work full time like most people.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, what I was saying was purification, if you're suffering, small or
Yeah.
big, can be seen as a sign of purification in Buddhism.
Yeah.
You're cleaning something out. So that's another way for us to engage with our suffering as a positive thing,
And
That can be helpful when we're purifying. I mean, when I'm suffering, I'm cleaning something out. As long as I can, I mean, we're not asking for, we're not necessarily being masochists to say, I want more and more suffering. I mean, high Lojong practitioners ask for the suffering, but we have to take it in doses. But when it does come up, it's a sign of purification. So what you can do is, we're going to do later today, Vajrasattva practice. Vajrasattva practice is an effective purification practice most of us do once a day. I like to do in the evening when I finish all my activities of the day. I want to clean up anything, especially my tainted view, which goes on day after day. So at least minimal that, plus anything else operated from that. And then you can choose what other practices and things like that you do. So the Medicine Buddha, there's a 45-minute, 1-hour version you can read every day in English. Maybe it's translated into Dutch, but that's one that I tend to do by people's bedsides when they're dying. Even if they've died and I'm not near them, I do it, visualizing them. It's a very powerful practice to do.
only reading, because I've learned it with you.
No, you read it with the visualization.
Oh,
You do it with
okay.
the visualization. All these practices are designed to be done with usually a type of visualization. So you can do a Tara practice every day. There's shorter, depends if you want compassion. We could do a, Chenrezig practice. So it depends but the main thing I would say, have you done a Discovering Buddhism, Establishing a Daily Practice module? Have you done that? So that talks about how to set up a daily meditation practice, which I would highly encourage, like that. So I actually have a list of the components of prayers, practices, things that come from Rinpoche. If you're interested in that, I could send that via Lizette and you could all get that. Now, granted, there's a lot of things on there, different, things you download, and you have to take them one at a time and go through. And I would say each of those little practice booklets, if you're new to this, spend at least 2 weeks on each. Slowly do 2 weeks something, get some familiarity, write down your questions about it, find someone at the center that can explain that prayer, that program. Probably Establishing a Daily Practice answers some of those questions. But then what you do is you'll be a little bit more familiar with that booklet, so it goes more quickly. And then you go to the next booklet and see what that's about. And then slowly through all those prayers and practices, you start to put you start to put a practice together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and tonglen, is that you can use it.
That's another beautiful practice to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but what you learn through to establishing a daily practice is how to put everything together slowly. And it takes time. It takes time. I mean, this could be a year's practice. You make a commitment to yourself. I'm going to spend this year getting this together where I really have a very robust, consistent practice. Does that make sense? That's the beginning of watching our minds. I mean, you've got to get that practice together, which includes motivational prayers. I would highly recommend, because that sets a tone where I get myself ready. And then I've got visualizations I'm going to do with some sort of guru yoga practice. There's a simple one, there's a medium length, there's a more elaborate one. There's many different types, but there's some, so there's booklets for all of this and then you slowly start to put that together. And then I can't stress enough, you got to find a qualified guru, highly realized being. You've got to associate yourself, find them. That takes time, that takes travel sometimes, or, finding out where are they teaching in the world. There's less of them at this point from that original generation that left Tibet, and many of them passed away, but their reincarnations now are, some of them are 20, 30 years old. So you can slowly start to, that makes a big difference on the path, is finding a right teacher that can really advise. And does that make sense?
Yeah, and with suffering, you mean also diseases and accidents and bad behavior of people towards you. That's all what when you say
Suffering
is
Suffering, I would say whatever disturbs your mind,
okay.
whatever disturbs
Yeah.
your mind. There's big and little, whatever disturbs your mind, things like that.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Thank you, my dear.
If I may add to that, actually, Annelies is guiding what we call the inner potential practices. It's a whole series
Yeah.
where she
Mm.
takes you through the different practices like Chenrezig, Tara, Meditative.
Perfect.
And so she has done a whole series, and we are planning up to the summer a few more. So I don't know whether you were already joining them, but it's called the inner potential practices. It is on the website, and a few more will be planned. Annelies is teaching them. Yeah, and it's a 1 hour session where she will explain about the practice and actually do the practice.
On one evening. Oh,
It's on Tuesday evenings.
okay.
Yeah, but we are now planning a few extra. But there's recordings of the previous ones. So
Fantastic.
if you're interested to get
Yeah.
access to the recordings, then that's also possible.
That's
Just
fantastic.
Send an email.
That's fantastic, because that's another nice component where the center has all these different levels of programs. And that's a great one, because a lot of centers don't have the time to walk people through a Tara practice, very simple Tara practice, or simple forearm Chenrezig practice, or the medicine Buddhist. And then you get another little thing that you feel like you can add in and get some explanation, I think, of some of the preliminary things that some of the prayers and things like that. Super helpful.
And Special Self is wonderful.
Yeah, fantastic. And I might see if Lizette wants to send around. There's a list of things that we put together that could be an added element to that. But I mean, Annelies probably has all of these things, and probably the ones in Dutch and things like that.
No, that's
No,
English,
it's in
actually.
English.
Okay. But still,
Yeah.
it can be helpful, and Lizette could work with her to see what do you want to add and what works and things like it. I find it really helpful. So I finally made a kind of cheat sheet of here's kind of what people need to do, because people ask me that all the time, and we have to get that going. I can't stress it enough, because without that fundamental meditation sitting, the quietness and the stillness, it's going to be really hard to watch your mind, to get the other work done. And what happens is people launch into intermediate level courses and they think they know something and they want to do it at this level, but they don't have that fundamental work that they're doing to really come back to, and it becomes a safe space, that cushion. And you can sit in a chair, but I'm just saying my meditation space, it's my safe nest, that I had something go on out here, and then I come back here and go, what was that about? Like, how did I handle myself okay? Not totally. No, I need to. And so what was I thinking at that moment? That's where you do that inner work has to happen. Without it, you got like half a leg. there that you're trying to stand up straight with like that. So it's really hard.
There's a question in the chat.
Yes.
Mike, he had the experience of a complete stranger approaching in the street, and he would really expect him to be aggressive. Would that be a glimpse of ripening karma into my mind stream? That's what he said. That he's kind of expecting the person to be aggressive, even though he's a stranger. Or
I'd
should
say
be a
even
stranger.
expecting when you have negative thoughts about that, sure, it comes from something negative in your mind stream. Yeah, absolutely. And we also know people, some of you may know people that are more paranoid than other people. Like I used to know somebody very paranoid. So you'd be walking down the street with them and there's a bag on the street, just a paper bag, kind of something, but it, you know, and they're immediately like, oh my God, there's a bomb. That never occurred to my mind. So they have a different imprint in their mind. Now, granted, I know we are more and more vigilant of stuff like that. And they tell you at subways, like, look, if somebody left a bag on the train and they're not there anymore, like, yes, that has happened. But again, there's some people overly tuned to negativity and others not so much. So the only thing is it's got to come from the mind. Does that answer your question, Mike?
Yes, to a certain degree. The question is like, it's not about being paranoid, but this is when that happens, this person actually does approach me and actually is aggressive towards me. So I'm just thinking, okay, so did I really provoke this person with my thoughts?
Oh, I see.
Or,
and I'm not calling, and no, I'm not meaning to say you're paranoid at all. I'm just saying we're wired in different ways. But what I would say is, it's interesting if there's a level of protection that I would find is your common sense, what you're talking about. Like we have common sense when we're walking down the street, that there are people that might look a little different. And they might look like they're a little bit more aggressive. They might be yelling or something. I would, and then my own trajectory is I'm going to be steering away from them going down this, just a natural common sense. Are you imputing that on the person and then they arise like that? I can't really say you're creating it for them to then be disturbing to you just by having that thought. I'd say that could be the arisal of another negative imprint in your mind if they actually engage with you in a negative way. But I don't know if I could actually say that just by having the thought that they look kind of a little disarming, and then it creates an, I mean, it could be they are disarming and you're picking up on that with your wisdom. Like this person is definitely having an issue, and the next moment then they actually engage in that way. It could just be that you're being more astute to notice things like that. Yeah. But it could be coming from a separate negative imprint in the mind. At first the thought, but then, so I don't know that the thought necessarily doesn't always create that to follow. Yeah. Okay, we're going to take a break, say 15, 20 minutes. And again, let's not waste our speaking energy in the break of just blah, blah. Again, notice. And so if you're going to have a cup of tea, you know, mindful sipping that tea, like, are you tasting it? It's coming from your mind. So whether you're having, oh, it's too hot, coming from your mind. It's too cold. I didn't leave the tea bag in long enough, taste. I really am enjoying this tea. All coming from the mind, coming from different karmic arisals in your mind. If you're with other people, keep the conversation to how did it work to dismantle your problem that we were thinking about reflecting on in the beginning? Did you notice the self-cherishing come up in the next moment when the problem started to evolve more? The clutching in myself, what I need, this is what I need, this is my thing, get out of my way. You know, so let's keep the conversation focused on that. And then another thing you can do, this was part of the homework. People can discuss this in here if they're together. The destiny, fate, coincidence, randomness, or is it karma? What do you think? And you can also think about, again, where do you think your suffering comes from? Are you still feeling very much that it's outside of you and somebody else is doing it to you? Or it's a situation or circumstance? Or is it coming from your own mind? So those are different topics you can focus on and think about. Thank you.
Thank you.